What if I told you that the signs were already there? That the subtle warnings of an elderly loved one approaching their final year weren't sudden, but had been appearing slowly, hidden in their daily habits, in their changing routines, in the things they used to love, but no longer care for? What if the clues were right in front of you, but you just didn't know how to recognize them? Most families don't realize that the body gives quiet signals before it reaches the end. It doesn't happen overnight. There is no loud announcement, no clear countdown. Instead, the changes come softly, gradually, like a whisper in the wind. A little more tiredness than usual, a little less hunger, a slower walk, a weaker voice, a distant look in their eyes. And because life is busy, because we never expect to lose them, we miss it. We assume it's just old age, just another bad day, just part of the process. Until one day we realize we miss the signs. Maybe you've seen something lately that doesn't feel right. Maybe your mother, who once talked for hours, now only responds with short answers. Maybe your father, who never missed a meal, now barely touches his plate. Maybe your grandmother, who used to recall old memories with perfect clarity, now stares past you as if she's lost in a world you can't reach. And maybe deep down, you feel it, that unspoken fear, that question you don't want to ask. Is this it? Is time running out? People don't like to talk about this. It's uncomfortable, painful, even frightening. No one wants to imagine their loved one's final year. No one wants to think about what it means. But avoiding the truth doesn't stop time. And when the moment finally comes, when we stand by their side knowing the end is near, we often regret not noticing the signs earlier. Because recognizing these signs isn't about fear, it's about love. It's about knowing when they need us the most. It's about making sure their final months, weeks, or even days are filled with comfort, dignity, and care. Have you ever looked at an elderly loved one and felt like something was different? Like something had changed, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it? Maybe they smile less. Maybe their hands feel colder than usual. Maybe they don't seem as present in conversations. And maybe, just maybe, their body's trying to tell you something. We often assume death comes suddenly, but the truth is, it rarely does. The body knows. It starts slowing down long before the end arrives. It prioritizes survival in the most essential ways, shutting down what it no longer needs. It stops asking for food because it knows digestion is no longer a priority. It asks for more sleep because energy is being saved for what matters most. It becomes quiet, distant, reflective, as if it's preparing for something we cannot see. And yet we ignore these signs, not because we don't care, but because we don't know how to interpret them. We assume they're just getting old, just tired, just having an off day. But what if they're not? What if these changes are their body's way of preparing for the final transition? What if, instead of brushing them off, we learn to listen? Imagine this. You visit your elderly father and notice he's lost weight. His clothes hang looser than before, and his arms seem thinner. You ask if he's been eating, and he smiles and says yes, but you notice his plate is still full. You don't think much of it because he's still talking, still watching his favorite shows, still sitting in his usual chair. But what you don't see is that his body has already started shutting down. His metabolism has slowed. His appetite has decreased. His body no longer processes food the way it once did. And without realizing it, you've just seen one of the first signs. Or maybe you've noticed your grandmother sleeping more. She used to wake up early, start her day with energy, talk about the news, ask about your life. But now she sleeps until noon. She dozes off in the middle of conversations. She seems exhausted even after hours of rest. And you think she's just getting older. But what if she's not just tired? What if this is her body's way of conserving energy for what's to come? These signs are subtle, but they are real. They are the body's way of preparing for the final journey. And if we recognize them early, we have the chance to make their last days meaningful, peaceful, and full of love. So I ask you, have you noticed changes in your loved ones? Have you seen them withdraw from conversations, lose interest in food, sleep more than usual? Have you brushed off these signs as just a part of aging? Or have you stopped to wonder what they really mean? Because today we're going to uncover the 10 most common signs that an elderly person may be in their final year. And some of them may surprise you. 1. Drastic weight loss. Without explanation. There is something deeply unsettling about seeing an elderly loved one lose weight unexpectedly. At first it may seem minor, perhaps their clothes fit a little looser, or their wrists appear thinner than before. You might brush it off, thinking it's normal for older adults to eat less, or that they've simply been skipping a few meals. But what if this isn't just a small change? What if this is one of the first signs that their body is slowly preparing for its final stage? Weight loss in the elderly, when it happens rapidly and without an obvious reason, is one of the most telling signs that the body is shutting down in ways we don't immediately recognize. The body works in remarkable ways to sustain life, but when the end approaches, it starts prioritizing only the most vital functions. This means that processes like digestion and metabolism begin to slow down. Food is no longer processed the same way, and appetite naturally decreases. The body instinctively knows that it no longer needs to store energy for long-term survival, so it begins using whatever reserves it has left. This is why many elderly individuals lose fat and muscle mass quickly in their final months. It isn't just about eating less, it's about the body no longer demanding or utilizing food in the same way. One of the most heartbreaking things about this type of weight loss is that the person themselves might not even realize it's happening. If you ask them, they may say, "I'm eating just fine," or "I don't feel hungry," and they may genuinely believe it. This is because their body has naturally adjusted to needing less, making hunger signals weaker or almost non-existent. Families often assume their loved one is simply being picky with food, but the truth is far more profound. Their body has begun conserving energy for essential functions, and digestion is no longer a priority. This change can be subtle at first. Maybe you notice they push their plate away more often, saying, "I'm full," even after only a few bites. Or they might take much longer to eat a meal that used to be finished quickly. Sometimes they may develop a sudden aversion to foods they once loved, avoiding meats or heavier dishes in favor of simpler, smaller meals. This isn't about preferences changing, it's about the body instinctively shifting toward easier digestion. In their final months, many elderly individuals crave only soft foods, soups, or liquids because chewing and digestion become more difficult, even if they don't openly say it. But the most alarming part of this process is how it affects muscle loss. Losing weight in old age doesn't just mean losing fat, it often means losing muscle mass, which directly impacts mobility, strength, and energy levels. You may notice that your loved one struggles to stand up from a chair, that they lean more heavily on objects for support, or that their arms and legs appear thinner than before. This is because the body, recognizing that it no longer needs to maintain long-term muscle function, begins breaking down muscle tissue for energy. When this happens, even basic movements, like walking across the room or getting dressed, can become exhausting. One of the lesser-known effects of drastic weight loss is changes in the face. You might notice that their cheeks look more sunken, their eyes appear larger, or their skin seems looser than before. The face naturally holds a small layer of fat that gives it fullness, and when the body starts using up those reserves, these changes become visible. Their hands may also look bonier, their veins more prominent, and their fingers thinner than before. These are all signs that the body is pulling from whatever resources it has left, using them to sustain essential functions like breathing, circulation, and brain activity. This is where families often struggle, because when a loved one begins losing weight, the instinct is to encourage them to eat more. You might find yourself pleading with them, making their favorite meals, offering snacks throughout the day, hoping they'll eat just a little more, and sometimes they might try. But forcing food on someone whose body no longer wants it doesn't work the way we expect. In many cases, their body physically cannot process large meals anymore. Their stomach may feel full after only a few bites, leading them to eat even less. This is why pressuring them to eat more can sometimes cause discomfort rather than help. The key to handling this change is understanding that their relationship with food has shifted. Instead of focusing on large meals, it's often better to offer small, nutrient-dense portions throughout the day. Smoothies, soft fruits, yogurt, Broth-based soups and lightly cooked vegetables are often easier for the body to process. Hydration also becomes increasingly important. Many elderly individuals in their final year unintentionally reduce their water intake, which can contribute to fatigue, confusion, and weakness. Offering small sips of water, herbal teas, or electrolyte-rich drinks can help them feel more comfortable without overwhelming their digestive system. One of the most painful aspects of this stage is the realization that weight loss is not something that can always be reversed. Families may try supplements, calorie-rich shakes, or special diets hoping to rebuild lost weight, but when the body has already entered its final phase, these efforts often have little effect. Instead of fighting against the natural process, the best thing you can do is ensure they are comfortable, well hydrated, and given the foods that feel best to them. This isn't about prolonging life at all costs. It's about making their final months as peaceful as possible. Perhaps the most heartbreaking moment for families is when they finally recognize that weight loss isn't just about food, it's about time. A rapid decline in weight, especially when combined with other changes like increased sleep, reduced social interaction, and lower energy levels, is one of the strongest indicators that the body is preparing for its final phase. If your loved one is losing weight quickly, it is important to shift your focus, not on how to make them eat more, but on how to spend meaningful time with them. Think about it. When was the last time you sat with them, truly listened to their stories, held their hand, or simply shared a quiet moment together? If you knew time was limited, would you change the way you spend your days with them? Because as their body begins this transition, what they need most isn't a bigger plate of food. It's love, presence, and understanding. Weight loss in the elderly is a sign that many people overlook until it becomes undeniable. But if you've noticed it in a loved one, this is your opportunity to be there for them in the way they need the most. Not by trying to reverse the process, but by making sure that every meal, every conversation, and every shared moment is filled with comfort and care. Because in the end, it's not about how much food they eat. It's about how much love they feel in their final days. 2. Sleeping more than usual. There comes a time when you start to notice something different about your elderly loved one. Maybe it starts small, naps that seem to last a little longer, mornings where they struggle to get out of bed, evenings where they nod off in their chair before dinner is even served. At first, it seems harmless. After all, older adults naturally sleep more, right? They get tired more easily. They've lived long, exhausting lives, and their bodies need extra rest. But what if it's more than just aging? What if this increased sleepiness isn't just about needing more rest, but a sign that the body is slowing down in a way most people don't recognize until it's too late? One of the most overlooked signs that an elderly person may be approaching their final year is a gradual but noticeable increase in sleep. Not just taking more naps here and there, but spending more and more of their time in bed, dozing off during conversations, and waking up only to eat a few bites before returning to rest. It's easy to dismiss it as just part of getting older, but when sleep begins to overtake more hours of the day than waking, it's a signal that the body is preparing for a transition. The human body is incredibly intelligent. It knows when to conserve energy, when to repair itself, and when to prepare for the inevitable. As the body approaches the later stages of life, it naturally starts shutting down non-essential functions to prioritize only the most basic survival needs. One of the first things to change is energy levels. You might notice that your loved one doesn't have the same motivation to get up and move around. They start preferring the warmth of their bed, the comfort of their chair, the quiet of their home. They might still try to fight it, forcing themselves to stay awake, but their body simply doesn't cooperate. The more they sleep, the harder it is to stay awake, and the cycle continues. You may notice that they start waking up later in the morning, even though they went to bed early the night before. Their eyes seem heavy even when they're awake, and their speech becomes slower, as if forming words takes too much effort. Conversations that once flowed easily now have long pauses, as if they're struggling to keep their thoughts together. You ask if they're feeling okay, and they respond with a quiet, "I'm just tired." And the truth is, they really are. Not just in the way we feel tired after a long day, but in a deep, all-encompassing way that signals the body is using every ounce of energy just to function. One of the hardest things to accept is when this sleepiness becomes more than just rest. It becomes withdrawal. When an elderly person is in their final year, their connection to the physical world starts to change. They begin spending more time in a state of sleep because their body is gradually detaching from daily life. You may find that when they do wake up, they aren't as engaged as before. They might seem distant, less interested in conversations, or simply stare off as if lost in thought. This isn't just exhaustion, it's a natural part of the body's transition. Families often struggle with this. They try to encourage their loved one to be more active, to engage in conversation, to get up and walk around more. And sometimes the elderly person might try. They'll force themselves to stay awake, to push through the fatigue, to sit at the dinner table and pretend that everything is fine. But after a short while, they simply can't keep up the act. The exhaustion takes over again, and they retreat to the comfort of sleep. Some families may even feel frustrated by this. They think, why don't they want to spend time with us anymore? Or are they giving up? But it's important to understand that this isn't a conscious choice. It's not about willpower or mindset. It's about the body naturally preparing itself for the next stage. And while it may be painful to watch, it's not something that can be fought or reversed. One of the most telling moments is when sleep patterns change drastically. Maybe your loved one used to wake up every morning at 7 a.m. like clockwork, but now they sleep until noon. Maybe they used to stay up watching television at night, but now they can barely keep their eyes open after dinner. Some may even start sleeping almost all day, waking only for short periods before drifting off again. This is one of the clearest signs that their body is beginning to slow down in a significant way. As this process continues, their relationship with the outside world also starts to fade. You might notice that they don't seem as interested in family events, that they no longer ask questions about things they used to care about, or that their responses become shorter and less animated. They're still here, but in many ways, they're already beginning to transition. It's also common for elderly individuals in their final year to experience moments of confusion between wakefulness and sleep. They may wake up not knowing what day it is, thinking they are in a different place, or even mistaking the past for the present. This happens because as sleep increases, the brain begins functioning differently, creating a dreamlike state even when they are awake. They may ask for people who are no longer alive, talk about past events as if they just happened, or mention seeing things that aren't there. This isn't necessarily dementia. It's a sign that their consciousness is shifting, preparing for the inevitable. And then something unexpected happens. Sometimes before a person reaches their final weeks, they will have a brief period of wakefulness. They may suddenly have more energy, be more alert, and even seem like their old selves again. Families often mistake this as a sign that things are improving, but in many cases, it's the body's last surge of energy before the final decline. They may engage in conversations, laugh, eat more than usual, but shortly after, the exhaustion returns, stronger than before. So what should you do if you notice a loved one sleeping more than usual? Instead of trying to keep them awake, focus on making their waking moments as meaningful as possible. When they are awake, be present with them. Hold their hand, sit with them in silence. Let them rest when they need to. But when they are alert, make those moments count. Tell them what they mean to you. Remind them of beautiful memories. Let them know they are loved. It's difficult to watch someone you love sleep more and more each day, knowing that their time with you is getting shorter. But instead of fearing it, try to see it for what it is, a natural, peaceful transition. This is not something to fight, but something to honor. Their body knows what it's doing. It is preparing them for the final journey, allowing them to drift between this world and the next with ease. The truth is, sleep is one of the body's greatest gifts in this process. It spares them from unnecessary pain, gives them peace, and allows them to slip away gently when the time comes. And for those of us who remain, it is our job to ensure that they are comfortable, that they are safe, and that they never feel alone in these moments. So if your elderly loved one is sleeping more than usual, don't panic. Instead, be there for them. Hold space for them. Cherish the moments when they are awake, and let them rest when they need to. Because in the end, this is how the body prepares for its final farewell. not with a struggle, but with gentle, quiet surrender.
3. Withdrawing from conversations and social life. There comes a time when you start to notice a difference in an elderly loved one, not just physically, but emotionally. They used to enjoy talking, sharing stories, asking questions, and being engaged in conversations. But now they seem distant. Their responses become shorter, their enthusiasm fades, and they no longer initiate conversations like they used to. At first, you might think they're just having an off day, feeling tired, or not in the mood to talk. But then, days turn into weeks, and you realize something is changing. They are slowly withdrawing from social interactions, as if they are quietly stepping away from the world. One of the most heartbreaking yet overlooked signs that an elderly person may be approaching their final year is their gradual detachment from social life and conversation. This withdrawal isn't just about losing interest in talking. It's about a deep internal shift that most people don't understand until they see it happen firsthand. The elderly person may not express it out loud, but their actions speak for them. They become less involved in family gatherings. They no longer show the same excitement when visitors come over, and they start spending more time in silence. It's not that they don't love the people around them. It's that their mind and body are preparing for a transition that words can no longer express. At first, this withdrawal might be subtle. Maybe they don't laugh at jokes like they used to, or they nod along in conversations without really engaging. Maybe they used to be the first to call and check in on family members, but now their phone sits untouched for days. Maybe they used to ask how your day was, how work was going, how the grandchildren were doing. But now they just sit quietly, as if lost in their own thoughts. It can be easy to misinterpret this as depression, boredom, or even rudeness, but it is something much deeper. It is a sign that their connection to this world is slowly loosening, as if they are withdrawing into a space only they can understand. This withdrawal often extends beyond just conversations. You may notice that they no longer want to participate in activities they once enjoyed. If they used to love watching television, now they barely pay attention to it. If they used to enjoy reading, now books sit unopened by their bedside. If they were once deeply involved in church, community events, or family traditions, they may now politely decline invitations. Their world is getting smaller, not because they don't care, but because their energy, their mental focus, and their emotional connection to the outside world are slowly shifting inward. Many families struggle with this change because it feels like losing someone before they are truly gone. You might find yourself asking, why don't they want to talk anymore? Why do they seem uninterested in everything? Why do they sit in silence instead of joining in? It can be painful to feel like the person you love is slipping away while they are still physically here. But what's important to understand is that this withdrawal is not something they choose. It is something that happens naturally as the body and mind prepare for the final phase of life. One of the most telling signs of this withdrawal is the change in how they react to visitors. Maybe they used to light up when family members came over, but now they seem indifferent. Maybe they used to enjoy long phone calls, but now they seem eager to end the conversation. Some elderly individuals will even start avoiding gatherings, preferring to stay in their room or sit alone in a quiet space. It's not that they don't appreciate the love around them. It's that socializing takes energy, and they no longer have the reserves to engage in the way they once did. As this process continues, they may begin speaking less and less. You may notice them staring out the window for long periods, seemingly lost in thought. They may respond to questions with simple nods or one-word answers, even though they were once talkative and expressive. Conversations that used to be rich with details and emotions may now feel hollow, as if they are mentally elsewhere. This is because their focus is shifting. They are no longer as connected to the small, daily details of life. Instead, their mind begins reflecting on deeper things, their past, their memories, and, in some cases, what lies ahead. Some elderly individuals in their final year begin reminiscing more than usual. They might talk about people from their past, events from their childhood, or places they haven't visited in decades. This isn't just nostalgia. It's part of their mind processing the life they have lived. They may bring up memories you've never heard before, telling stories with remarkable clarity, as if they are reliving those moments one last time. In some cases, they may even start talking about deceased loved ones, saying things like, "I had a dream about my mother last night," or, "Your grandfather was sitting right here with me." Some may even speak as if those who have passed are still alive, as if the boundary between past and present is beginning to blur. This is not confusion. It is a sign that their consciousness is shifting in ways that science cannot fully explain. One of the most difficult parts of this process for families is accepting that you cannot force them to engage in the way they used to. No matter how much you encourage, plead, or try to spark their interest, you cannot pull them back into the world they are slowly leaving behind. This is not something that can be fixed or reversed. The best thing you can do is meet them where they are. If they don't want to talk, just sit with them in silence. If they seem uninterested in activities, let them be, but stay close. If they bring up memories from long ago, listen with your full heart, because they are sharing pieces of their life that mattered most. It's important to recognize that this withdrawal is not about sadness or depression. It is about peace. As the body slows down, so does the need to engage in the busy details of life. The mind turns inward, preparing for a journey that the rest of us cannot yet understand. The best gift you can give them is your presence, your patience, and your acceptance. Some of the most meaningful moments happen in silence. Holding their hand while they sit quietly, sharing a meal without expecting conversation, watching their favorite show with them even if they don't react the way they used to. These moments, though small, are powerful. They are reminders that love does not need words to be felt. If your elderly loved one is withdrawing from conversations and social life, don't take it as rejection. Don't think of it as them giving up. Instead, see it for what it is: a gentle, natural transition. This is their body's way of preparing for the next chapter, a process as old as time itself. It is not something to fight or fear, but something to honor. So, if you've noticed these changes, if you felt the quiet distance growing between you and someone you love, use the time you have wisely. Sit with them. Listen without judgment. Let them withdraw when they need to, but be there when they are present. Because in the end, what matters most is not how much they say, but how much they feel loved in their final days. 4. Frequent confusion or memory loss. There is something profoundly unsettling about watching someone you love begin to forget things. It starts with small lapses: misplacing their glasses, forgetting what day it is, asking the same question twice in a short conversation. At first, you tell yourself it's normal. Everyone forgets things sometimes, but then it gets worse. They forget appointments they never used to miss. They repeat stories as if they're telling them for the first time. They suddenly seem lost in familiar places. And then, one day, you see it in their eyes. That flicker of uncertainty, that moment of hesitation when they look at you and seem unsure of who you are. That is when it hits you. Something deeper is happening. This is more than just forgetfulness. Memory loss and confusion in the final year of life are not always the same as dementia, though they can overlap. In many cases, the brain itself is slowing down, just like the body. As an elderly person approaches the end of life, their mental clarity begins to fade. not necessarily because of disease, but because the mind is preparing for a transition. The brain requires a tremendous amount of energy to function, and when the body starts conserving its resources, cognitive function is often one of the first things to weaken. You might notice that your loved one struggles to keep up with conversations. They start a sentence, pause, then look confused, as if the thought has slipped away before they could finish it. They may forget names, even the names of people closest to them. This can be incredibly painful for family members. Seeing a parent, grandparent, or spouse suddenly unable to recognize someone they have loved for decades is heartbreaking. But it is important to understand that this is not personal. They are not choosing to forget. Their mind is simply disconnecting from details that are no longer necessary in the journey they are about to take. As memory loss progresses, they may begin to confuse past and present. You may find them talking about childhood events as if they happened yesterday. They might call you by a different name, one belonging to someone from their early life. They might ask about a relative who has been gone for years, fully believing that person is still alive. This happens because the brain often holds on to long-term memories more tightly than short-term ones. When clarity fades, the past feels more real than the present.
They may speak about their parents as if they are still with them, or insist that they need to go home even when they are sitting in their own house. This can be deeply confusing for families. Some try to correct their loved one, reminding them of what is real and what is not. But often this only leads to frustration and distress. Arguing with someone in this state doesn't help. It only confuses them further. Instead of trying to force reality upon them, the best approach is often to meet them where they are. If they believe they need to go home, ask them about that home. Let them describe it. If they talk about a long-lost loved one, listen to their stories without correcting them. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is allow them to exist in the world their mind has created, because in those moments, that world is more real to them than ours. One of the most unexpected things that can happen in this stage is seeing moments of complete clarity return out of nowhere. There may be days when they seem lost in confusion, unable to remember simple details, struggling to form coherent sentences, and then, suddenly, for a brief moment, they are completely present. They recognize you. They recall a memory with perfect detail. They say something so profound and clear that you almost believe they are getting better. Families often take this as a sign of hope, believing their loved one is improving. But in reality, this sudden clarity is often the mind's last gift before it fully begins to let go. This phenomenon, sometimes called terminal lucidity, has been reported across cultures and throughout history. In the final weeks or days of life, a person who has been confused or unresponsive may suddenly have a moment of deep awareness. They may say things that are unusually wise, express love in a way they hadn't before, or speak about what they see and feel beyond this world. Some talk about seeing deceased relatives waiting for them, others describe beautiful places they feel drawn to, and some simply express a deep sense of peace. It is as if, for one last time, they are fully present before stepping into whatever comes next. Families often ask, how do we support a loved one who is experiencing memory loss and confusion in their final year? The answer is simple: with patience, with love, and with acceptance. Trying to force them to remember, trying to make them act normal again, will only create distress for both them and you. Instead, meet them where they are. If they are confused, gently reassure them rather than correcting them. If they forget who you are, don't take it personally. Just remind them with love, or simply be present without expecting recognition. If they become lost in a different time, let them stay there. Ask them about their memories. Let them relive their past with dignity. It is difficult to watch someone's mind slip away, especially when it's someone who was once sharp, intelligent, and full of life. It feels unfair. It feels like losing them twice, once to memory loss and then again when they finally pass. But instead of focusing on what is fading, focus on what remains. Even in confusion, love remains. Even in forgetfulness, their essence is still there. You may not be able to bring back the person they once were, but you can be there for them in the person they are now. And when the final moments come, when the confusion fades into silence, when words are no longer spoken, when the mind finally releases its hold on this world, that is when your presence matters most. Because even if they don't remember everything, even if they don't always recognize faces or names, they will always feel love. And in the end, that is the one thing that never fades. 5. Loss of interest in food and drink. There comes a moment when you start to notice something different at the dinner table. The plate that was once cleared with ease now sits half full, untouched. The glass of water remains nearly the same, barely sipped. The snacks that once brought joy, cookies with tea, a favorite fruit, or a warm bowl of soup, are now pushed aside. You ask them if they're hungry, and they shake their head. You bring them something you know they love, and they take only a bite, then set it down. You remind them to drink water, but they simply forget or say they're not thirsty. At first, it seems like a temporary loss of appetite, something that will pass. Maybe they're just not in the mood for food today. Maybe they'll eat later. But the days turn into weeks, and the pattern continues. What once was a natural part of their daily routine, eating, drinking, nourishing the body, now feels like an afterthought, something they no longer seem interested in. For many families, this is one of the most difficult changes to witness in an elderly loved one. Food is more than just sustenance. It's connection, tradition, comfort, and care. We express love through meals, we gather around tables to share stories, and we instinctively equate eating with strength and health. So when an aging parent or grandparent starts refusing food, it's unsettling. It feels like they're giving up. But the truth is, this isn't a choice they're making. It's something deeper, something happening on a level beyond their control. It is the body's natural way of preparing for the final stage of life. As a person enters their last months or even year, their body begins conserving energy in ways most people don't realize. Digestion requires a significant amount of effort, breaking down food, absorbing nutrients, processing waste. All of these functions demand energy. And when the body senses that it is nearing the end of its journey, it begins to shut down non-essential functions. The desire for food starts to fade, not because they are stubborn or depressed, but because their body no longer needs it in the same way. The first thing you might notice is a change in portion sizes. Someone who once had a hearty appetite may suddenly eat only a few spoonfuls before saying they're full. This happens because their metabolism slows drastically, meaning their body requires fewer calories to function. The stomach may also shrink slightly, making smaller amounts of food feel more filling. Over time, meals become less frequent, and even when they do eat, they may take much longer to finish. It's not that they don't enjoy food anymore, it's that their body is sending different signals than before. Then there's the issue of taste and smell. As a person ages, their senses begin to dull, and food may not taste the way it once did. Meals that used to bring comfort now feel bland or even unpleasant. They might say that everything tastes the same, or that food has no appeal at all. This is partly due to changes in the brain, as well as the reduced function of taste buds and olfactory receptors. Without the strong sensations of taste and smell, eating becomes less pleasurable, making them even less likely to want food. Another major shift happens with drinking. You might start to notice that they drink far less than before. A glass of water might sit next to them for hours, barely touched. You remind them to drink, and they take a small sip, but then forget to continue. Dehydration in elderly individuals is common, not just because they drink less, but because the sensation of thirst weakens with age. Their body no longer sends the same strong signals telling them they need water. So unless someone actively reminds them, they simply don't feel the need to drink. This can lead to another difficult reality. Their body's ability to process food and water changes. Even when they do eat or drink, they may experience discomfort, bloating, or difficulty swallowing. You might notice them coughing after taking a sip of water or struggling to chew foods they once ate easily. This happens because as the body slows down, the muscles that control swallowing and digestion weaken. Swallowing becomes more of an effort, and eating feels more like a chore than a pleasure. For many families, this is when frustration sets in. You bring them their favorite meals only to see them barely touch their plate. You beg them to drink more water only to find the same glass sitting there hours later. You might even feel angry. Why won't they just eat? Don't they understand they need food to stay strong? But this is where understanding the deeper process can bring some peace. They aren't resisting food because they want to suffer. Their body is simply changing in ways that make eating less necessary. One of the most common fears at this stage is, are they starving to death? The idea of someone not eating enough instinctively fills us with panic. We think about how hunger feels in our own bodies, and we imagine they must feel the same way. But the truth is, the body knows how to adapt. In the final stages of life, metabolism slows to the point where food is no longer needed in the same way. The body starts relying on stored energy and gradually shifts into a different mode, one that doesn't depend on frequent meals. They are not suffering in the way we imagine. Their body is simply following a natural process. This is why forcing food or drink can actually cause discomfort. Some families try to encourage eating by offering calorie-rich shakes, supplements, or extra-large portions, thinking it will help restore strength. But 6. Changes in skin color and temperature. There comes a moment when you touch the hand of an elderly loved one and feel something different, something that wasn't there before. Their fingers, once warm and full of life, now feel cold, as if the warmth that once ran through them is slowly fading. Their once rosy complexion has taken on a pale, almost bluish tone. You may notice their feet are colder than usual, or that their skin seems thinner, more fragile, almost translucent. At first you assume they just need a blanket, maybe a warmer sweater, but even after bundling them up, the coldness remains. You rub their hands, hoping to bring back some warmth, but nothing seems to change. It is then that you realize this isn't just a temporary chill. This is something deeper, something happening from within. As the body nears the final stages of life, circulation begins to change in ways that are often unnoticed at first. The heart, which has worked tirelessly for decades, starts to slow down, pumping blood less efficiently than before. The body, recognizing that energy needs to be conserved, begins prioritizing blood flow to the most vital organs, the heart, brain, and lungs. This means that areas like the hands, feet, and even the face begin receiving less circulation, leading to cooler skin and subtle changes in color. It is a silent but powerful sign that the body is beginning its natural process of shutting down. One of the earliest and most common changes is cold extremities. The fingers, toes, and even ears may feel noticeably cooler to the touch. It may start gradually. Perhaps their feet feel chilly even when they're wearing socks, or their hands seem unusually cool when you hold them. Over time, this coolness may become more pronounced, and even wrapping them in warm blankets doesn't seem to help. This is not because they are simply cold. It is because their body is redirecting blood flow to more essential areas, ensuring that the most critical systems continue functioning for as long as possible. Along with this change in temperature, you may begin to notice a shift in skin color. The hands and feet, once pink and full of life, may begin to look paler, or even take on a slightly bluish or purplish hue. This is known as mottling, a pattern of discoloration that appears when circulation slows down significantly. It often starts on the lower legs or feet, spreading upward as the process continues. The skin may develop a marbled appearance, almost as if small veins are becoming more visible beneath the surface. This isn't painful for the person experiencing it, but for loved ones witnessing the change, it can be a deeply emotional realization that the body is preparing for its final transition. You might also notice changes in skin texture. The skin may appear thinner, more fragile, or even slightly waxy. It may lose its elasticity, feeling looser or more delicate than before. Some areas may develop small bruises or darkened spots due to decreased circulation, as the body is no longer able to heal itself in the same way. Wounds that once healed quickly may now take longer, and even minor scratches may leave marks that linger. These changes are not a sign of illness. They are simply part of the body's natural aging and end-of-life process. One of the most profound changes happens in facial color and expression. You may notice that their cheeks, once full and lively, appear sunken. Their lips may become slightly pale or bluish, especially when they are resting or sleeping. The natural glow they once had may begin to fade, replaced by a more muted complexion. Their eyelids may appear heavier, and their expressions may seem more distant. It is as if the body is slowly withdrawing from the physical world, preparing for a journey beyond what we can see. For family members and caregivers, witnessing these changes can be deeply emotional. It is one of the most visible signs that their loved one is moving closer to the end, and the instinct to fix it is strong. You may feel the urge to keep them as warm as possible, to check their temperature frequently, to rub their hands in hopes of bringing back warmth. But it is important to understand that these changes are not something that can be reversed. They are simply the body's way of following its natural course. This stage can also bring about changes in sweating and body odor. Some elderly individuals may begin sweating more than usual, even if they are not physically active. Others may develop a faint, different scent, something difficult to describe but noticeable to those closest to them. This happens because as the body slows down, metabolic processes shift, leading to changes in the way the skin releases moisture and waste. This is completely natural, and it does not mean the person is in distress. It is simply another part of the body's transition. 7. Difficulty breathing or changes in breathing patterns. There comes a time when you sit beside an elderly loved one and notice something different about the way they breathe. It's not something that happens all at once, not a sudden shift, but rather a slow, almost imperceptible change that builds over time. At first, it might be subtle. Pauses between breaths that seem slightly longer than usual, a faint wheezing sound, or the way their chest rises and falls more noticeably. But as the weeks go by, these small changes become more pronounced. Their breaths may become shallower, more labored, or even irregular. Sometimes there are long pauses between inhales, moments where you hold your own breath, waiting for the next one to come. And in those moments, something inside you whispers a truth you don't want to face. Their body is slowing down in a way that words cannot describe. Breathing is one of the most basic and automatic functions of the body. From the moment we are born, we inhale and exhale without thought, without effort. But as the body begins its final transition, even this most fundamental function begins to change. The lungs, like every other organ, start to weaken. The body, recognizing that its time is drawing near, redirects energy away from breathing muscles, focusing only on what is necessary for survival. As a result, breathing patterns shift in ways that can be unsettling to those witnessing it. One of the first changes you may notice is increased breathlessness. Simple activities like sitting up, turning in bed, or even speaking may leave them out of breath. They may struggle to complete full sentences, pausing frequently to catch their breath. You may notice them sighing more often, as if trying to draw in more air, but not quite succeeding. This is not because they are physically exerting themselves. It is because their lungs are no longer working with the same efficiency. The muscles that help control breathing begin to weaken, and the oxygen levels in their body may fluctuate, leading to this persistent sense of breathlessness. Another significant change is the pattern of their breathing. You might notice periods where their breaths become very shallow, almost as if they are barely taking in air. Other times they may breathe rapidly for a few minutes, then slow down again. And then there are the pauses, those long, quiet moments where it seems as if they have stopped breathing altogether, only for them to suddenly take a deep gasp, as if pulling themselves back into the moment. This pattern is known as Cheney-Stokes breathing, a common sign in the final months, weeks, or days of life. It is a rhythmic cycle of deep, heavy breaths followed by pauses, and while it can be distressing to witness, it is not painful for the person experiencing it. There may also be times when their breathing becomes noisier. This can happen when mucus builds up in the throat and airways, creating a rattling or gurgling sound with each breath. This sound, sometimes called the death rattle, can be deeply unsettling for loved ones. It may sound as if they are choking or struggling, but in reality, it is simply the body's way of adjusting to the final stages of life. At this point, the person is often unaware of the sound, as they are in a deeply relaxed or semi-conscious state. Their body is not fighting, it is simply following its natural course. One of the most difficult things for families to witness during this stage is when their loved one appears to be gasping for air. The instinct is to panic, to think that they are suffocating, to feel helpless in the face of something so raw and primal. But it's important to understand that this is not the same kind of struggle for breath that a healthy person experiences when they are short of air. This is the body's way of adjusting, of taking in what it can, even when the lungs are no longer functioning at full capacity. There is no sensation of panic for the person going through this, only the slow, natural process of the body winding down. For caregivers and family members, watching someone you love breathe in these irregular, unpredictable ways can be emotionally overwhelming. You may find yourself counting their breaths, listening closely for every inhale and exhale, feeling anxious with every pause. It's natural to feel helpless, to want to do something, anything, to make their breathing easier. But in most cases, there is nothing to fix, only a process to witness with love and understanding. There are, however, small ways to bring comfort. Keeping the room cool and airy can make breathing easier. A gentle fan or open window can help circulate fresh air. Sometimes simply repositioning them, raising their head slightly or turning them to one side, can ease the sensation of breathlessness. Keeping their lips moist with a damp cloth or a few drops of water can provide relief, especially if their mouth becomes dry from breathing through it. In some cases, a doctor may prescribe medications to help relax their breathing and make it smoother, not to prolong life, but to bring ease in the final moments. As the final hours approach, breathing may become even more irregular. The pauses may grow longer, the inhales softer, the exhales almost imperceptible. There will come a moment when you realize you are waiting for the next breath, but it does not come. And in that moment, the transition is complete. The body which has carried them through a lifetime has done its final task. The breath, which began the moment they entered this world, has now come to its last. If you are sitting beside someone who is in this stage, the greatest gift you can give them is presence. Speak to them softly. Tell them that you are there, that they are safe, that they are loved. Hold their hand, place a cool cloth on their forehead, reassure them with your voice. Even if they cannot respond, even if their eyes remain closed, they can still feel you. They can still sense the warmth of your touch, the comfort of your words. And as their breathing slows, as the space between breaths grows longer, know that this is not suffering, it is peace. One of the hardest things in life is witnessing someone's final breaths. It is a moment that changes you, that stays with you, that reminds you of the fragility of life. But in that moment, there is also something sacred. To be present at the end of someone's journey is an honor, a final act of love. They are not alone. They are surrounded by care, by love, by the quiet presence of those who have walked beside them through life. And when that last breath finally comes, when the stillness settles in the room, when the body releases its final hold, it is not an ending. It is a transition. The struggle is over. The pain is gone. What remains is the memory of a life lived, the love shared, and the deep knowing that they were not alone in their final moments. So if you find yourself sitting beside someone whose breathing has changed, whose breath is slowing, whose presence is fading, do not fear it. Hold their hand a little longer. Let them know they are safe, that they are loved, that they can let go when they are ready. Because in that final breath, in that last moment of stillness, there is not just loss, there is also love. 8. Increased pain or restlessness. There comes a point when you start to notice something shifting in an elderly loved one. It's not always easy to pinpoint at first. Maybe they shift uncomfortably in their chair more often, adjusting their position as if trying to ease an ache they can't quite name. Maybe they wince slightly when they stand, even if they don't say anything about it. Maybe they rub their legs absent-mindedly, stretch their hands more often, or sigh with the weight of discomfort that seems to follow them everywhere. And then slowly, it becomes more pronounced. They start mentioning more aches and pains, or they become less willing to get up and move around. They toss and turn in bed, unable to find a comfortable position. Even when they sleep, their body does not seem at peace. There's a deep restlessness, an unease that cannot be soothed by pillows, warmth, or medication. It is a sign, one that most people miss until it becomes undeniable. Their body is struggling, and it is trying to tell you something. Pain in the final year of life is one of the most complex and difficult symptoms to manage, not just for the person experiencing it, but for their loved ones who must watch them go through it. It is not just physical, it is emotional, mental, and even spiritual. The body, after decades of service, is growing tired. The joints that once carried them through life's journeys are now worn and inflamed. The muscles that once allowed them to move with ease now ache with even the slightest effort. Organs that once functioned without thought now protest with every passing day. This pain can come in many forms: stiffness in the limbs, burning sensations in the nerves, dull aches that never quite go away. And sometimes it is not just pain. It is an overwhelming sense of discomfort that cannot be explained, only felt. One of the most difficult aspects of this stage is that many elderly individuals will not openly talk about their pain. They may downplay it, saying things like, "Oh, it's nothing," or "I'm just a little sore today." Some may even deny it altogether, not wanting to burden their loved ones. But their body tells a different story. You see it in the way they hesitate before sitting down, as if bracing for the pain that will come when they lower themselves into a chair. You see it in the way they grip the armrest when trying to stand, gathering strength for a movement that used to be effortless. You see it in the way they massage their hands, rub their legs, or stretch their neck, trying in vain to relieve a discomfort that never fully fades. There is also a different kind of pain, one that goes beyond the body. Many people in their final year experience a restlessness that has no clear explanation. They seem agitated, unable to sit still for long, constantly shifting positions as if their body is searching for relief but cannot find it. Some become more irritable, more impatient, easily frustrated over small things. Others become distant, withdrawn, lost in their own world, as if their mind is occupied with something beyond this moment. This is not just physical pain. It is the weight of an approaching transition, something deep within them that they may not even be able to express in words. This restlessness often becomes more pronounced at night. You may notice them waking up frequently, unable to find a comfortable way to sleep. They may call out in their sleep, shift positions constantly, or wake up feeling just as tired as when they went to bed. Some may begin picking at their sheets, tugging at their clothing, or reaching for things that aren't there. Subtle movements that seem insignificant at first but become more frequent as time goes on. This is a sign of the body slowly letting go. It is as if the physical self and the deeper self are not quite in sync, as if something within them is already beginning the process of detachment. For caregivers and family members, this stage can be incredibly difficult to witness. You want to help, but you don't know how. You offer pillows, extra blankets, repositioning, pain medication, massages, anything to bring relief. And sometimes these things help. A warm compress may ease the aching joints. A soft pillow may provide a few moments of comfort. But other times, no matter what you do, the restlessness remains. This is when you must understand that not all discomfort can be taken away. Some things are simply part of the body's process of shutting down. That doesn't mean there is nothing you can do. The greatest comfort you can provide is presence. When words do not ease the pain, when medicine does not take away the discomfort, your presence is what makes the difference. Sitting beside them, holding their hand, speaking in a soft voice, these things matter more than you know. Even when they do not respond, even when their eyes remain closed, even when they seem unaware of your presence, they feel it. They know they are not alone. And sometimes that is the greatest relief of all. One of the most profound aspects of this stage is that many elderly individuals begin to express a different kind of pain, not just physical, but emotional and spiritual. They may speak of regrets, of things left undone, of people they long to see again. Some may express guilt over past mistakes, unresolved conflicts, or words they never got the chance to say. This is a pain that no medicine can touch. It is the kind of pain that only love, forgiveness, and understanding can ease. If your loved one begins bringing up old memories, old wounds, or unfinished conversations, listen. Let them speak. Let them release whatever they are carrying. Let them know that they are heard, that they are loved, that it is okay to let go. As the final days approach, this restlessness may reach its peak. They may struggle to get comfortable no matter what you do. They may have moments of confusion, speaking of things that don't quite make sense. Some may even talk about seeing loved ones who have passed, mentioning names of people who are no longer here, as if they are standing in the room. This is a deeply mysterious yet common experience among those nearing the end of life. It is as if they are caught between two worlds, already beginning to step beyond the physical realm. And then suddenly the restlessness fades. The body, having fought to hold on, begins to release. The tension in their muscles eases. Their breathing slows. Their face softens. There is a stillness that settles over them, a quiet peace that was not there before. This is the moment when you realize they are ready. In this final stage, your role is not to fix, not to cure, not to prevent what is happening. Your role is to be there, to provide comfort in whatever way you can, to speak gently, to hold their hand, to remind them that they are not alone, to tell them it's okay to let go. There is no easy way to witness someone you love go through this. It will break you, but it will also teach you something profound, that life is fragile, that love is eternal, that in the end, what truly matters is not the pain, but the presence of those who care. So if you are sitting beside someone in this stage, if you are watching them shift restlessly, struggle with discomfort, or whisper of things beyond this world, do not be afraid. This is not just suffering. This is the body's final preparation, the last chapter before peace. 9. A sudden burst of energy or clarity. There comes a moment, often unexpected, when an elderly person who has been weak, withdrawn, or barely responsive suddenly seems full of life again. They wake up with a brightness in their eyes that you haven't seen in weeks, maybe even months. They start speaking with more clarity, recalling old memories with stunning detail, laughing at jokes, or even sitting up with newfound strength. They may ask for their favorite meal, engage in long conversations, or suddenly seem completely present in a way that makes you believe, if only for a moment, that they are getting better. And for the people who love them, it feels like a miracle. After days or weeks of watching them fade, this sudden burst of energy feels like hope, a sign that maybe, just maybe, they're turning a corner. But then, just as quickly as it arrived, the energy disappears. Within hours or a day, they slip back into exhaustion, their body retreating once more. They become quiet again, distant, barely responding. The food they had eagerly asked for now sits untouched. And in that moment, the truth settles in, a truth that is difficult to accept. This sudden burst of energy was not a sign of recovery. It was a final gift, a brief moment of clarity before the body fully lets go. This phenomenon is known as terminal lucidity, and it is one of the most mysterious and deeply emotional signs that a person is in their final days or hours. It happens across cultures, across ages, and across medical conditions. It is as if the body and mind, sensing that the end is near, gather whatever energy remains for one last moment of connection. It is not just physical, it is spiritual, emotional, and profoundly meaningful. For families, this moment can be incredibly misleading. After days or weeks of watching their loved one decline, they begin to hope again. They think, maybe they're getting stronger. Maybe this isn't the end after all. It is human nature to cling to these moments, to want to believe that the person they love is making a comeback. And who could blame them? After witnessing suffering and decline, seeing that familiar spark return feels like a sign of healing. But the body, when it is nearing the end, follows a different rhythm. This sudden burst of energy is not a reversal of the dying process. It is a part of it. The reason behind terminal lucidity is not fully understood, but doctors and hospice workers have observed it time and time again. It is as if the body is using up its final reserves, the last flicker of a candle before it goes out. For some, this moment lasts hours. For others, it may last a full day. But it is almost always followed by a rapid decline, signaling that the end is closer than ever. One of the most heart-wrenching aspects of this stage is that families often don't realize what it means until after it has passed. They may encourage their loved one to eat, to get up and move, to make plans for the coming days. They may begin to believe that the worst is over. But then, when the energy disappears as suddenly as it arrived, the emotional crash is devastating. They wonder, what happened? Why did they seem better, only to fade so quickly? The truth is, they weren't getting better. They were saying goodbye. There is something deeply profound about this stage. Some believe it is the mind's way of giving closure, allowing one last chance for connection before letting go. Others see it as the spirit's final moment of presence before it moves on. Whatever the reason, it is a moment to be cherished, not feared. If you find yourself witnessing this sudden clarity in someone you love, do not waste the moment. Do not assume there will be more days like this. Instead, be fully present. Listen to their stories, hold their hand, tell them everything you need to say. If they are asking for a certain person, try to bring them. If they want a specific food, let them have it. If they are sharing memories, soak in every word. Because this may be the last time you hear their voice in this way, the last time they are truly present with you before slipping into deeper rest. This is their gift to you, a final chance to connect, to love, to say goodbye without saying the words. Some people in this stage begin to speak about things beyond this world. They may talk about seeing loved ones who have already passed, mentioning names of parents, siblings, or spouses who have been gone for years. They may describe visions of beautiful places, speak of light, of warmth, of peace. They may say things like, "They're waiting for me," or "I'll be going soon." And while it may seem surreal, this is a common experience. It is not confusion, not hallucination. This is something deeper, something we may never fully understand. And then, just as quickly as it came, the moment fades. The person who was just speaking clearly now struggles to keep their eyes open. Their words become fewer. Their body grows tired again, and they slip back into quietness. The energy that felt so strong hours before is now gone, and the stillness returns. And for those left behind, the realization settles in. This was not a recovery. This was a farewell. For caregivers and family members, this moment is bittersweet. It is a gift, but it is also a warning. It is one of the clearest signs that the body is preparing to shut down completely. And what comes next is the final transition. The moment when sleep deepens, when breath slows, when the body takes its last steps toward release. So if you ever find yourself in this moment, if you see your loved ones suddenly come back in a way that feels almost miraculous, hold on to it. Do not take it for granted. Do not assume there will be more time. Instead, cherish every second. Let them know they are loved. Tell them what they mean to you. Sit beside them, hold their hand, and be fully present. Because when the moment passes, when they return to stillness, you will know that you were there for their final gift, the last light before the gentle fading. This is not something to fear. It is not something to mourn before its time. It is a reminder that love does not fade, that the spirit does not simply disappear. And when the final breath does come, when their body finally lets go, you will know that they left not in pain, but in peace. And that, in the end, is all we can hope for. 10. Talking about seeing loved ones who have passed. There comes a time when an elderly person, nearing the end of their life, begins speaking of people who are no longer here. At first, it may seem like a simple memory surfacing, a story from the past being recalled in vivid detail. But then, it starts happening more often. They mention their mother, their father, a sibling, or a spouse who has been gone for decades. Not in the way one reminisces, but as if those loved ones are present in the room with them. They may say, "I saw my mother last night," or "Dad was sitting right by my bed." Some may smile as they speak, comforted by these visions, while others may become confused, wondering why they can see someone who has long since passed. For family members, this can be unsettling. You know the person they are talking about is gone, yet to them, it is as real as anything else in the room. You may find yourself correcting them, saying, "No, Mom, Grandpa passed away years ago." But the way they look at you, the certainty in their voice, tells you that they are not simply remembering the past. They are experiencing something beyond what we can see. This phenomenon, often referred to as deathbed visions or nearing death awareness, has been observed in countless cultures, across religions, and throughout history. It is not simply a hallucination, nor is it confusion from dementia or medication. It is something deeper, something profound, something that those who are closest to death seem to understand in ways that the living cannot. In these moments, an elderly person may describe seeing deceased parents standing at the foot of their bed, a spouse waiting for them, or even a child they lost long ago. Some speak of angels or figures of light. Others simply smile and say, "They're coming for me." The descriptions vary, but the emotions are often the same: peace, reassurance, and a quiet acceptance of what is to come. For those witnessing these moments, the emotions are complex. At first, there is disbelief. You may tell yourself they are just confused, that it is the result of medication, that they are dreaming while awake. Then there is fear. What does this mean? Are they really seeing something? Or is this simply the brain's way of preparing for the end? And finally, there is acceptance. Because as these visions continue, as they grow stronger, as your loved one seems more and more comforted by what they see, you begin to understand that this is not something to fear. This is a transition happening right before your eyes. One of the most remarkable things about these experiences is that they often bring peace to those who have been struggling. A person who has been restless, in pain, or filled with anxiety may suddenly become calm after speaking of seeing a loved one. A person who has resisted the idea of death, who has fought against the inevitable, may suddenly say, "I'm ready." It is as if in these moments they are given a glimpse of something beyond this world, something that reassures them that they are not going alone. Not all visions are spoken out loud. Some elderly individuals simply look past you, their gaze fixed on a point in the room where no one stands. Others reach out as if grasping the hand of someone unseen. Some whisper names softly, their voice filled with emotion, and some simply smile, as if seeing something beautiful that words cannot describe. For those who do speak about their visions, there is often a sense of urgency. They may repeatedly ask if a certain person has come to visit, even if that person has long since passed. "Where is Grandma? She said she'd be here." Or they may describe their loved ones, telling them that it's time to go, that they should not be afraid. Some even describe seeing a place, a garden, a bright light, a peaceful home. They may say things like, "It's so beautiful there," or "I'm going home soon." For family members, this can be a deeply emotional experience. It is one of the clearest signs that the end is near, and yet it is also one of the most mysterious. How is it that so many people, across different cultures and beliefs, experience the same thing? Why do they all speak of seeing loved ones, of being guided, of feeling a sense of peace just before passing? Science has no definitive answer, but the stories remain the same. If you find yourself in this moment with someone you love, do not dismiss it. Do not try to convince them that what they see is not real. Instead, listen. Let them talk about who they see. Ask them what their loved one is saying to them. If they describe being called home, let them know that it's okay. Give them permission to go, to follow that voice, to let go of this world if they are ready. These moments are not about confusion. They are about closure. They are about the final connection between this life and whatever comes next. Whether you believe in an afterlife, in the presence of loved ones waiting beyond, or in the mysteries of the mind, there is one truth that cannot be denied. These experiences bring comfort to those who are leaving. And if they bring comfort to them, then perhaps they can bring comfort to us as well. When the time finally comes, when their breathing slows, when the last words have been spoken, you will remember these moments. You will remember that in their final days they were not alone. You will remember the look in their eyes, the way they smiled at something unseen, the way they spoke of love that never truly left. And you will know in the deepest part of your heart that they did not fear the journey ahead. So if you hear them say, "They're here for me," or "I see Mom," or "I'm going home," do not panic. Do not try to hold them back. Instead, hold their hand, speak gently, and let them know that it is okay, that they are loved, that they can go in peace. Because in the end, what they see is not for us to understand, it is for them. And when they finally take that last breath, when the room grows still, you will know that they did not leave in fear, but in love. And that is the greatest gift of all. There comes a time in life when we must face the reality that someone we love is nearing their final moments. It is a journey that is both painful and sacred, filled with changes that are difficult to witness yet profoundly meaningful. The signs we have discussed, weight loss, increased sleep, withdrawal, memory loss, lack of appetite, changes in skin and breathing, restlessness, bursts of clarity, and visions of loved ones, are not just symptoms of the body shutting down. They are messages. They are the body's way of saying, I am preparing. And for those who are watching, those who love them, it is a call to be present, to be patient, and to honor this transition with love. For many, the hardest part is accepting that these signs do not mean there is something to fix. We spend so much of life fighting to keep those we love with us, searching for treatments, remedies, anything to turn back time. But there comes a point where the greatest act of love is not holding on. It is letting go. It is recognizing that this is not suffering, but a natural part of life. The body knows what it is doing. It is not failing. It is releasing. If you are caring for someone who is nearing the end, the most important thing you can do is be there. Not with words to try and stop what is happening. Not with fear of what is coming, but simply with presence. Hold their hand. Sit beside them. Let them know they are not alone. Because in the end, it is not medicine, nor technology, nor even time that matters most. It is love. And when that final breath comes, when the body finally rests, when the stillness fills the room, know that they have not truly left you. They have simply stepped beyond what we can see. Their love remains. Their presence lingers in the memories, in the moments shared, in the lessons they left behind. Death is not an ending. It is a passage. And though we grieve, though we ache, though we wish we had just one more moment, we can take comfort in knowing that they did not leave in fear, but in peace. So as you walk this path with them, as you witness these signs and feel the weight of what is coming, remember this. Your presence is the greatest gift. Your love is the softest farewell. And when the time comes when they finally let go, they will not be alone.